Personalism and a Loving God. Dr. King's doctoral dissertation's attack on the liberalism of empiricism and postmodernist existentialism. In 1955, at the age of 26, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. submitted his doctoral dissertation to the University of Boston and received his PhD. Within 13 short years, Dr. King would lead the civil rights movement and would be assassinated by J. Edgar Hoover at the direction of the same entities that assassinated JFK and his brother Robert. In any discussion of the content of Dr. King's doctoral dissertation, comparison of the conceptions of God in the thinking of Paul Tillich and Henry Weiman. The primary issue that gets discussed is whether Dr. King plagiarized parts of his dissertation. This is very telling because the debate over these kinds of claims has drawn attention away from the actual original thesis of Dr. King's doctoral dissertation, which is an analysis and comparison of the theology of two apparently opposed influential contemporary Christian philosophers. One, Paul Tillich, an existentialist who brings postmodernist ideas into defining the nature and proof of the existence of God. The other, Henry Nelson Weiman, who is seeking to bring empiricist methods to differently define the nature and proof the existence of God. Both Tillich and Weiman are seeking to contemporize Christianity and make it more relevant by basically killing the personality of God through philosophical, sophistical definitions. An examination of Dr. King's dissertation, even within the peer-reviewed context of a PhD candidacy, reveals a nascent philosophical struggle against the liberal and empiricist philosophical diseases of our day. The contention here is that this philosophical struggle laid the philosophical, moral foundations that guided Dr. King in the path he took with his ministry and politics. This is even more clear if one examines tendencies within Dr. King's doctoral dissertation in the context of the philosophical battles between the Renaissance of Socrates and Plato and the empiricism of Paulo Sarpi, and later the battles of Leibniz and Benjamin Franklin against the enlightenment of Adam Smith, Locke, and Newton that led to the foundation of the United States. To put it briefly, Paul Tillich's God is defined as being existence, that the basis of all being in the universe is God, but God is also above all beings. Thus, one's beingness is derived from God, and because of that, one's sovereign individuality as a human being is compromised. As an existentialist, Tillich must maintain that human reason is inherently fallible and unable to know the real world, which is outside of sense perception and the categories created for apprehending sense perception. This inability to know the real world, called noumena, is only apparent to the followers of the various variants of Aristotle. To those steeped in the methods of Socrates, the nature of the Socratic method is precisely the process by which the real world beyond the senses and the categories is discovered. When this is done in human society, these discoveries become the basis to materially change the universe through actions based on these discoveries. We can only prove that we can know the existence of the real world when we physically change it. In this respect, to Tillich, Human reason is so terrified by the insoluble contradictions between the autonomous and the heteronymous, between the absolute and the relative, and between formalism and irrationality, that humans are driven to God in a quest for revelation. It is reason's terror at the unknowability of truth that requires God as the basis of being. In all this, Tillich cannot resolve the contradictions he creates in defining an existential proof for the existence of God. An example is that Tillich cannot present God as a personality because that would make him a thing, and God must be above being a thing. But if God is not a personality, a thing, can God exist?